I'm just making.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight I'm proud to be with Setna Khamuast of Khemet, and we're going to be discussing the particulars of his own unique path with an emphasis on the Olympian elements. Greetings and welcome, Setna. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know it's exactly a week from today. I finally finished all my turkey and
Oh, good.
stuffing and such. I made quite a feast. I actually did. Um, and I'm glad to hear you, and I'm glad to see you again. Um,
Thank you.
so
Tina made us a wonderful feast. It was just us, the three of us, and our fur babies, our two dogs and our cat. So that was Thanksgiving for us, and it was
I made a 7 pound turkey breast. It was
wow.
just Charles and Oliver and me. I had mashed potatoes. I had macaroni and cheese. I had a vegetable casserole that I made. I made pumpkin pie. I made croissant. I had pickled beets, and it's all here. Yeah, it was wonderful. It was we had it for about 5 days.
Wow, that is great. We had leftover soup, but not for 5 days, but they were delicious, even warmed up.
I made turkey salad and I did a thing with mashed potatoes. It's like my Aunt Violet called it a China pie. I hadn't, it's really shepherd's pie, but I didn't have any shepherds. So what are you going to do?
I haven't had shepherd's pie in a long time, but I used to order it when I was in certain neighborhoods in New York City that sold it everywhere.
Let me tell you, if you're in New Jersey, which I know you are, there are cheesecake factories and they have shepherd's pie, which is quite good. So, and since I'm no longer anywhere near New Jersey, I am in a what's called a savannah in Savannah, and it's raining. So I've got a rainy night in Georgia, Hercules.
Very good. New adventures.
I love my adventure. Now, let's go into what we're talking about, which is the Olympian and Egyptian marriage, shall we say. You have Horus Apollo, you have Isis Hera, you have Hathor Venus, you have Serapis, which is Osiris, Apis, and I also believe Zeus kind of mixed up in there. And it's Amun also because it's a bull. Amun, Zeus Amun is the um,
Yeah.
temple where Alexander the Great went to find out that he was the son of the god. It was a misinterpretation of the oracle. Has been written many times that that was so. His mother Olympia was Olympias. Often raved that pardon me, Darius was not. I mean, his father, Philip of Macedonia, was not his father, but that Zeus, in fact, was his father. And the oracle in the temple of Zeus Amun said the same thing. And so Alexander was convinced. Alexander was within 3 days anointed pharaoh of Egypt. So among the Ptolemies, actually, the first pharaoh of Greek pharaoh of Egypt was Alexander the Great.
Yes.
And that is wearing coal. I don't think they shaved his head. He loved his long golden hair too well, but he wore the pharaoh's crown and he ruled for 25 days and then established a satrap, which is a governor, and he moved on. The governor would be Ptolemy, and that would be later. We know that Alexander the Great whose body was stolen from Persia, was brought by Ptolemy, the first Ptolemy, um, to Alexandria. But all of the gods and goddesses in that tomb are Greek and Egyptian morphed. And in my temple, in the Pernateru temple, we do this. I honor Zeus. He's always been part of my heart and always been there with me. And I think of Ra and Zeus and Horus Apollo. Again, because my sister is a Delphic oracle, her name is Pythia. Her nickname is Pythia, her magical name is Pythia. And she follows Apollo, that is her deity. And so when she's with me, she takes him as Horus Apollo.
Yes, the syncretism was there because the cultures interacted a lot, and there are different associations. So depends whichever ones are more resonant. Like, for instance, with Hercules, we've spoken of this. Hercules sometimes is associated with Heru or Horus. Sometimes he's associated with Shu, who's also sometimes associated with Atlas. And then he's sometimes associated with Best. In one of his earlier Cretan aspects, the Idaean dactyl Hercules, who clanged his spear on his shield and made noise so that Kronos did not hear the baby infant Zeus crying. And he was later rewarded or punished by Kronos to becoming a lion with his mate, which some believe is Athena.
There is in Egyptology, in the Egyptian tradition, in the Pernateru tradition, um, Sakem, who is the lion version of Ra, which is later the lion version of Horus. And so that would be associated with Hercules.
Yeah,
Um, as far as Athena, more she would be associated with Neith because she's wisdom and she's war, and Neith is both.
right.
Neith has a symbol of two crossed arrows, and she carries with her a quiver and a bow. She, unlike Athena, she doesn't carry a spear, but she does carry a sword, a very large sword. And I remember on the statue of Athena, the copy that was in the Parthenon at one time, there is a sword at her side besides the shield and her huge spear. I remember, and she has in her hand Nike, which is victory. And I remember that.
And in the Greek city Thebes, which is named after the Egyptian Thebes, but was founded by Canaanites, so the Phoenicians, uh, Hercules in his milk cart aspects is honored, and Athena is Anat, the sister wife of the Baal of the area, which is Melkart for the Phoenicians. So you have all those streams of mythology blending in as well. Um, what I'm trying to do with the cerulean sphere and other efforts is to honor everybody's cultural backgrounds and cultural foundations of their spirituality and their magic without that becoming the central thing. So it's there, it's honored 100%. Uh, we can discuss openly the similarities and the dissimilarities and agree or disagree. There's no right way. Each of us is on a journey of discovery, and here's an attempt and an opportunity to share our journey and learn from each other. And the color blue is neutral in terms of the associations. People generally don't hate the color blue, or if you're resonant with blue, you don't hate the color red or orange or something. So it's like a neutral way of beginning to categorize some of these things and work with them and still honor the traditions that gave them birth and which nourish them to this day through our attention and through our worship, if you're into worshiping, or into our actions through our rituals and things like that. So this conversation is toward that end.
Well, everyone in the world knows of who Tutankhamun was.
Right.
His mask is all gold, but all of the stripes on the Nemzis, which is the crown, which I'm also wearing at the moment, are made of lapis lazuli, and it is because it is preservative for immortality. I wear on my finger always too a lapis lazuli on one hand and a very beautiful sapphire on the other. Sapphire in Egypt is quite rare. That usually comes from further on in Asia, more India, where they had rubies and sapphires more. But the pharaohs used sapphires as a symbol of immortality. They've been finding recently sapphire and lapis lazuli scarabs in some of the newest tombs that they've been undergoing. These are Ptolemaic tombs. Great and also Hellenistic Roman Greco-Roman tombs, and they've been finding lapis so that they understand that the Romans and the Greeks understood the Egyptian value of lapis lazuli and of the color blue. All the pharaohs wore a blue crown in war in honor of Neith, who also wore a red crown, but and also every pharaoh always had the gold and the blue stripes in his crown.
Yeah, there's a movement started by a gentleman who claimed that the Greeks and the Egyptians of antiquity didn't know the color blue. But looking at of the art,
Really? What planet was he from? Would you mind telling me?
I came across it the other day. It popped up in my screen. The ancients did not recognize blue. And one of the things he cited was that in Homer and other ancient literature, the sea is described as wine dark. So then they didn't supposedly know the color blue, but that doesn't indicate that they didn't, because in the
May I disagree?
pictures, yes,
I think he's an idiot. Every tomb, every temple, every place in Egypt, there is blue lapis lazuli. There is turquoise. There is blue faience. It's a color that is made by, it's a paler blue called Egyptian blue. And if they didn't know what blue, how did they know it was Egyptian blue? In fact, your wall behind you is the color Egyptian blue.
oh, okay, I guess
So I
blue,
don't understand. I don't understand this person's logic. Perhaps he doesn't know anything about the Greeks or the Egyptians.
yeah,
And I mean, the blue sea, the Aegean Sea, is a blue sea,
yes,
is it not? And if you go into Crete, into the Minoan culture, you'll see blue spirals all over the place,
right.
and they're
Mount
blue.
and Blue Sea and a lot
They're
of
ground, the blue of those things are ground lapis lazuli and ground blue seashells that were ground in to make the paste, to make that paint. It's a tempera paint. I paint, I know a great deal about painting, and I find this whole line of thought preposterous. I really do. I mean, the Egyptians even ground lapis to put lapis and malachite. Unfortunately, the 1960s had the same thing happening with taking a cream and a blue and putting it over the eyes, or that horrible green that women wore from the early 1960s, which is Elizabeth Taylor's fault because it was all done in Cleopatra.
country, yes.
It was a mess, but she could have worn burlap over her eyes and been beautiful. Elizabeth Taylor. I don't know about Cleopatra. They said she was attractive, but not, she had a nose you could stick your both hands into if you wanted to.
There are lots of stories about that too, and the standards of beauty change from culture to culture.
Exactly.
Somebody could be very attractive in their culture and then another culture not be attractive at all. So,
They say she was short. She had reddish brown hair and green eyes, and she was a little, they call it Zoftig, like the Venus de Milo. In fact, there are people that say that statue is Cleopatra, that was the one that Caesar put in the courier of the Senate as the goddess Cleopatra, and they think that the arms were broken because the statue was pushed down. It's not just the arms that were broken. The nose was chipped. I think one of the feet was also chipped when it was pushed down, in defiance of Julius Caesar.
the Venus de Milo we're talking about?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that. I learned something new. Thank you.
Oh, it's something I've known a long time, but I don't talk about it a lot. But so, in your traditions, do you use a sistrum?
No, I don't. I'm not really into rituals beyond the ones I use for exercise. So, I
I'm just speaking in the vernacular of the Greek traditions in general.
not that I've observed. Usually, they use a type of grain to do some of the ceremonies. They use wine. One of the ones that I observed is hair cutting. Uh,
Yes.
and whenever I start a new chapter in my life, I cut my hair short. And it doesn't happen very often, and it's not a little chapter, sorry, but when there's a major change, positive, negative, or neutral, it's just something radically different. I cut my hair, and that's my letting go of the past and embracing the future. But I don't really perform rituals.
When I moved from Freeport, Long Island to Newark, New Jersey, I shaved my head. It was a whole chapter. There's not much up there anyway, but I wanted to look more like an ancient Egyptian priest.
Okay.
These days, I look more like a Ptolemaic priest, a Greco-Egyptian priest. And I prefer it. This is who I am,
Hmm.
but instead of doing other ritualistic things, I don't have any tattoos, but I do wear an awful lot of Egyptian jewelry. I don't know if you can see. Maybe
Yes.
you can. I have a lot of things on.
Everyone, every time I post your picture, everyone comments on your beautiful jewelry and wonders where you got it from. We lost the sound, Setna. We lost sound.
Well, that was the god of sound being naughty, I suppose. I'm sorry.
No, it
I
was
was going to say the collar comes from Cairo. The Eye of Horus that's down there somewhere comes from Alexandria. This Ankh with the copper chain comes from what would be called Thebes, which is Karnak, Luxor. The Ankh there is also the Ankh actually came from Syosset. There is an Egyptian festival there every year. The little scarab also comes from Cairo, and the this is a black tourmaline. This was actually from Ethiopia. I have a very good friend who lives in Ethiopia, and she brought it to me along with a Egyptian plum wine. I don't drink, so I gave it to friends of mine.
yeah, I don't drink very often. I drink once a month at our meeting that we have, the theosophical one.
Ah,
It's a tradition, and I like chocolate wine, so that's my
oh,
excuse.
I know you do. I remember when I went to the meeting, you had chocolate wine.
And then if we eat like Mexican food, I might have a margarita or a pina colada. We don't eat Mexican food very often, so I don't
I,
usually.
in times past, I would have done the same, but the strongest thing I drink these days is iced coffee.
That can be quite.
I, eh?
Coffee can be quite powerful.
Oh, the way I make it, it sure is.
I stopped drinking coffee for a while, and then when I drink my first cups of coffee, when I go back on coffee, it is you can feel your heart zooming
Mm.
and your consciousness shift.
It does. Well, coffee opens up synapses in the brain which help you think. It's also been known to be an antioxidant which works for men against prostate cancer.
I have
So
not known.
it's a very important, I guess you would say, spice. It's a nut. It comes from a bean, which is really a nut, a coffee bean. And I guess that would work as a spice. I'm never always sure what the delineation between herb or spice, what is what, which and what is the other.
Yeah, there's some fluidity with those terms.
I think so.
Now,
So go
what
ahead. I'm sorry.
when you first started, because from what I remember in our conversations, you have three deities that are Greek that you have primary resonance with. One is Zeus, the other one
Hecate is
is
always part of my life, and I will say Apollo because of my sister.
okay, and Apollo.
But I am also, because I'm Virgo and ruled by Mercury, I am also very, very susceptible to Hermes, um, Mercury, if you will, or whom I call Hermes Trismegistus, Tehute Thoth.
Hmm.
And to me, that mixture, that's the greatest of all the magical gods from Egypt, as far as the connection between the Egyptians and the Greeks. Hermes Trismegistus, they say, came in human form. Um, he brought his son came down with him and wrote the Emerald Tablet and many other things. So that was, and it started the whole Hermetic society, and that began in Alexandria.
Yes, we're starting a Hermetic show, which is going to be like the Theurgy show that we've had now for like over half a decade, near a decade. So it's going to be focusing on the Hermetics, and you have Olaf, whom you know, who's part of Hermetic Society, and some other people who are also part of Hermetic Society. So that's going to be starting very soon. If you are also resonant with Hermes and the Hermetic Sciences, I'll gladly introduce you as well, and you can join the panel whenever you're free.
The Emerald Tablet and the other writings of Hermes Trismegistus are well known to me, so I would certainly be part of. I'd like to be part of that. I would like to have it from my mind is from rather the Egyptian point of view, from the Alexandrian point of view, rather than the contemporary Greek point of view.
And Amon Duncan, who you also know,
Oh,
uh,
indeed.
is a many-year student of the Hermetic writings.
He's a very wonderful man. I'm glad that we've got a chance to meet. I went through the same thing he did. I lost my husband 4 years, 5 years ago now, and I know he lost his wife. So I do understand that grief. It's a pain that's very, very hard to shake, if
Yeah,
not recover from. And my sympathies go to him always.
yeah, he's a great person. And Diane, I miss Diane. I've had so many long conversations with Diane, both on and off the air,
I
that
wonder, had I met her? I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know if you met her.
I don't think I had. I know it's like Mark and Phyllis. You hear Phyllis, you never see her.
Yeah, I've met Mark and Phyllis. Went to Tim Beckley's funeral.
Oh,
I met them there.
I only know Mark from I met him well first online and then at Nick Cordo's. We had a ceremony 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I met them. It was nice.
You also embrace the cosmic or outer space, ancient alien type of
Oh yes.
aspects of the godly lore that we have available to us. And I'm starting, I believe you're in the group. I'm using Stargate as a modern example of the mythology because they took the ancient astronaut, ancient alien legends, and mythology, and the idea of the portals. The Stargate, the doors that the endless doors that are flat that you bring your consciousness through, and developed into the Stargates. So I'm looking at that because Stargate became a phenomenon, and it opened the door to a lot of people learning about Egyptian and other mysteries and embracing them. So,
I do like that part of things. I don't like the portrayal of Ra, who is my father deity.
right.
They make Ra out to be a rotten, very, very selfish deity, and he's anything but. Ra is a beneficent, loving, powerful God. I like a little bit better the portrayal of Ra in the Gods of Egypt. I don't like the movie, but I do like that portrayal. They show Ra as very strong. He's fighting the serpent every single day so that he can make the sun rise and go across the horizon. Interestingly enough, Ra drives a barge across the sun
Right.
just as Apollo drives a chariot across the sun. And it's very interesting that connection together there. They're both in a vehicle going across the sun to open it up and awaken it every day.
In Hercules' mythology, during the Cattle of Geryon adventure, he gets a sun goblet that is big enough to fit all those cattle he got from Geryon. So it changes size. It's usually depicted like he's sitting in a cauldron, and it's in the ocean, and there's a bunch of fish and octopuses swimming around to show you that it's the ocean. And it moved like a boat, but it also flew through the sky.
Interesting. There's a Norse legend also like that, where a king gives, I believe it's Thor, a goblet, and he has to keep drinking. And the more he drinks, the less it can do, and it's the ocean.
The ocean. That's where he fought the old woman in the.
Right. And she's aged. It's a very interesting thing. They show that in a portrayal in the series Vikings also. They show an aspect of Zeus, a god that came down to the earth to have lots of. Well, I know it's supposed to be Odin, but it's more Zeus because he has sex with the entire village. And Zeus would be someone who would do something like that. All of the women in the village were subject to his whims.
Yeah, I know the Greek mythology, especially, it wasn't with they were doing cloning or they were doing genetic material. They were like selective breeding.
Quite a
With
bit.
they were mixing their seed with. our DNA and producing offspring. They monitored the offspring. And in fact, Hercules is the grandson or the great grandson, I forget, of Perseus, who was also a child of Zeus. So Zeus seeded the line, and it tells you in the mythology that he created Hercules when he did to help them in their fight against the giants.
It's like Ra. Ra has a wife, like Hera, and her name is Mut. And she is moisture and the air and all sorts of amazing things. She is breezes. And of course, she also cools the earth as the sun makes things too hot, in Egypt especially, and in Savannah. But Zeus also has an affair with his great granddaughter, Isis, and produces the goddess Bast. And he has an affair with Neith, and she creates Selket. So he's got many others, and he also has had an affair with two dogs, Anubis and Apuat, who are twins, but also they say lovers, and they have a kind of a celestial threesome, as it were, at one time, and they produce the Nile.
Hmm.
I don't know how the three men or three male gods produced the Nile that way, but they did. And the Nile is also male, which is strange. I mean, the Greeks said the mother Nile, and the Egyptians said, no, Hapi is the Nile. He's a man. And he's two men, one holding papyrus reeds, the other holding lotus reeds. And they tie them in a knot. It's a marriage.
Yeah, the Egyptians had the heaven and hell, or heaven and the ground reversed. Because the Greeks had the earth mother is the ground, and the sky father, or Uranos, is the sky. In Egypt, it's the other way around.
Well, yes,
Ground is male, and the sky
Geb is the
female.
earth. And they say that one of his volcanoes spewed up into the air and reached Neith, Nuit, his wife, and that's why Shu, their grandfather, would push them aside because we're constantly making more gods and goddesses. And Ra said to them, "All right, already, calm down, relax." And every night she would close back on him and produce more little gods and goddesses, little spirits, and they're called nomarchs. They're lesser gods and goddesses. I was talking about one. Her name is Wayet. She is. I'm sure you don't know this. She's a hedgehog.
You had mentioned that.
Yes, she's a hedgehog.
I remember hedgehogs from Greece when I was growing up. There were hedgehogs still all over the place.
I know the Romans ate them, which I don't understand at all,
Yeah,
but they did.
The Greeks had them through gypsies, especially on the islands who speak the hedgehogs. They had all these dishes for hedgehogs.
Well, the Egyptians called blowfish sea hedgehogs,
I did
and
not.
they did eat those also. They didn't do it like the Japanese. They didn't, keep all the guts to make fugu, which is, of course, a Japanese poison. It's from some gland or other, and if you don't take care of it well, you'll die eating the blowfish. I think I'll stick to fillet of sole or tilapia or flounder, something less poisonous.
A wise choice. Yeah, I woed stay away from poison things. I'm not that curious about what it tastes like.
No, I'm funny, I like simple things like, hamburger sometimes and chicken and turkey and fish and tons and tons of vegetables. And I'm working with pastas now that talk about interesting things. I'm working with chickpea and sunflower and artichoke pastas, which are less carbohydrates and they're more proteins. Also, I found an oat pasta, which is no carbohydrate and has a great deal of protein.
That sounds interesting.
A new thing. And we found that, there were oats in Egypt and they had wheat also, but primarily they used wheat and corn. People didn't think there were Egyptian corn. They weren't the corn similar to the ones found in the Americas. It was a white corn, and it is found in tombs, and so they know it's there. Is it? We know also possibly with the aliens and the travel. Is it possible that the Egyptians traded with them for corn?
Yeah, the corn, they had American style corn on some Egyptian friezes, if I remember correctly.
Yes, very much so.
So
And
there
so,
was contact between the old world, and I know that when I was into American Indian or Native American mythology, some of these sacred names of the gods included Ra, for the
yes,
sun god. The Apaches, I believe, were tribes that were living around there. Then up in the north too, that was true. So I'm sure there was a lot of interruption. There was also pottery, Mohica pottery, that showed Hercules and the Hydra and Hercules against other recognizably Greek mythology beasts, and they were depicted
well,
in American Indian or Native American form. Like there wasn't lion skin, there was jaguar skin, and they wore the jaguar skull as a helmet. But it was definitely Hercules. If you look at the pictures, like, oh, this is from this myth. Here he is with the two serpents he's choking, you know. So
that must have made you feel really good.
yeah, yeah, a whole separate library dedicated just to that Hercules in the Americas.
Do you know about the temple, the Greek temple in Roanoke in Virginia?
No, I don't know.
There is a temple. Now, the Greeks, the ancient early Greeks, have a way of doing architecture where there's sort of a, I guess it's a parallelogram or an inverted triangle with the edge cut off. And it holds together the two sides of an arc, and it has a lion on it, sort of symbolizing Hercules.
Hmm.
And this has been found in a ruin somewhere in Roanoke, Virginia. It predates the Vikings. It predates certainly all the other Europeans, and it predates some of the Native American peoples in that area. It's at least 3,500 years old.
If you can find me a reference to it or a link to it, I greatly appreciate that.
I saw it a few years ago on one of these um, specials, ancient wonders and things, something like that. And I've also read it in National Geographic. I'll search my archives and see what I can do to find that for you.
I'm learning so many new things today. Thank you. I can never thank you enough. You're full of very interesting and relevant information tonight. And,
Being high priest, that's
mhm.
my first job. We are called Hem Neteru Tepi, and it means first servant of the temple. So my duty is to first serve the gods, the deity, of course, but also the temple and those who will people it, those who are worshiping and following. I am their servant. I am not their master. I'm there to teach them. The Egyptians thought of a scribe as a servant rather than a higher position. So
Mhm.
even though the high priest was the most educated of all the priests and priestesses and such, he's also the one that would be scrubbing the floors. He also is the one that would be bringing the altar. That rather than having servants bring things, which is what you see in Hollywood, that wasn't the case. The priests would carry the offerings and what have you from the hands of whoever it was that was bringing them onto the altar. It was part of their work. So they had a lot of dirty work. It wasn't all the starched white collars, robes and leopard skin. That's beautiful, but it isn't reality.
In the Herculean traditions, there's this very contrary view of priest crafts and things like that. And it starts rather early when, before he did the labors, when he was a shepherd and a cowherd up in the mountains for a while, and he killed a Catharian lion, his first lion that he fought and vanquished. The people there wanted to make him a god, and Thespius had his 50 daughters sleep with Hercules to produce children, and that happened in many of the myths. But the priests of Hercules, do you know what their title was?
Tell me.
Parasite. And what word sounds like parasite?
Parasite. Oh dear.
Paras. Yeah.
It's terrible.
Hercules,
Hercules was a flea.
Hercules priests were called parasites.
That's terrible. Oh,
There's,
that's an awful thing to call
there's
someone.
there's that ambiguous feeling with priests, and priests in Greece were not respected like in the Odyssey.
Yeah. I had roommates that would have been perfect for those a long time ago.
The aristocrats, they could take vengeance for Odysseus killing all their sons, but priests were being killed nilly-willy by those arrows, and nobody seemed to have cried for them or raised a fuss about them. So,
Whereas in Egypt, the highest class, the highest caste, even above the pharaoh, were the priests.
correct,
The priests of Amun ruled Egypt pretty much for thousands of years. The pharaoh was the one that would make the ultimate decision, but it was kind of like a constitutional monarchy.
right.
He could not rule without Isis wears the steps on her head, and it represents all of the queens of Egypt. It's the throne. So a pharaoh could not rule single. Didn't work. Wouldn't happen. Had to have a wife, but he also had to have the approval for everything of the high priests and high priest enchantress, the high priestess of the Temple of Amun, or sometimes in history it was Abydos, which was Osiris, or it was Thebes, which would also, or Memphis, which was Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, as it were. And so they were always the ruling class, and yet they were still considered, although very, very high in status, they were still considered people that were of a slave, almost a slave or servant class.
Well,
It's a
Hercules
contradiction.
was a servant, not just to Eurystheus, but also to Omphale. So there too, he achieved great things that gave him immortality ultimately. You know, like finishing labors is one of the conditions for his becoming immortal and being brought up to Olympus. But he wasn't in charge. He was serving somebody else or something else when he was doing the things that he did. So that service is very much a part of the Herculean mythos.
As it is in Egypt. So there's another carryover Hercules right there. Okay, so that works. The one difference though, in Greece, the males were in power. It was a patrilineal society, even among the temples of the goddesses. In Egypt, there was a chantress. She was equal to the high priest.
Hmm.
Women in Egypt could hold office. They could own property. They could get divorced if they wanted to. They could say to the husband, "I've had enough of you," and they would go to the local magistrate and say, "Get rid of him." And the priest would say, "Look, this is five already. Come on, stop." But so Liz Taylor and Zsa Zsa Gabor would have had a problem. But this is true. Women were of equal status. They learned to read and write. There were priestesses and priests in all the temples. As things went further on into the great, when the Ptolemies came, that all went away. Women were no longer in the status that they held in ancient times. I don't know what happened there, but that was after the Alexandrian um, conquest. That
Hmm.
changed so that a priestess would have a lesser caste than a high priest.
I find that very sad. I find it very sad that that's happening now, when you think we would have been more evolved than to allow that to happen again.
I give credit to the Episcopalian Church because they have female bishops and
Hmm.
female priests, and they're not called priestesses; they're priests. I wish the Catholic Church would wake up and do the same. Nuns have done wonderful things for centuries, and I have always thought that they should have an equal um, footing to the male clergy. And I'm not the only person who thinks that over time. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but it's just my view because my priestess would be equal to me. My
Well,
female scribes, my female people that would attend the temple, they're all equal. We have a leader, a high priest and a high priestess, or a chantress, or in some cases a co-high priest in some temples, but they held equal status. And I would like to see that come back again in the world where people recognize that women and men are equal.
I'd like to see that come into the world and stay in the world. And whatever things I've done of a spiritual nature that were public, it didn't just involve me. That equality was in, it was always very balanced, and many of the things that seem to disturb the world. Um, as long as it's between consenting adults, we didn't care.
I mean, I will say that in certain, even of my, I'm pagan, and some of my sects, people of my tradition, of other traditions other than mine, also the female is the chief figure, and the male will take a lesser position. And, that's fine for them if that works for them. But
Right.
I prefer my egalitarian way where the male and the female, have equal responsibilities and rights.
I'm in full agreement with you there.
We've always been, as long as the Egyptian traditions, the Khemetic traditions were in power, that's what happened. Like I said, they were called nomarchs. They were female governors. And they're also, oddly, that name also applies to lesser gods and goddesses. They all had, you know, like Greece, the Egyptian gods and goddesses had regions. Isis was at Aswan, Horus at Edfu, Osiris at Abydos, Amun Ra were, after all, in Thebes, which would be Karnak nowadays. And also Horus at Heliopolis with Ra. Heliopolis was the Greek name, obviously.
Yeah, the city of the sun.
Hmm? Hein? Place du Sol en français. So, do you see what I've been saying all along, that there is a marriage between the Olympian gods and goddesses and the Egyptian, and it was a positive accord. I think each gave to the other positive aspects.
Hmm.
I don't think anything was lost literally in the translation. I think people became more accepting. In Egypt, there were temples to many other gods and goddesses. We know that Bes, for instance, was an Egyptian god who came from, I believe, Assyria originally. He came with merchants. They had little statues, and the Egyptians said, "What is that?" Because it's a strange looking little guy, and they thought he was funny and happy and cute, kind of like an Oompa Loompa. And he was attending to fertility and things. He would tickle the woman that was having a baby and make her, forget the pain that she was in. And then she gave birth, we hope. But, so a lot of other gods and goddesses too. There was Shasset. She is the wife of Tehute, Shasta or Shasset. Shasta, like the old soda. Mhm. She has a seven-pointed star on her head, and she is they say the creator of physical writing and mathematics. And she is also best friends with the god Ptah, who of course is archaeology and calculus and such. And so his numbers helped, I mean, her numbers helped him create things like pyramids.
Hmm.
It was a cooperation. She's also very much in the Masonic traditions, in the ladies' auxiliary, as it were.
Yeah, the Masonic, there's a lot of elements of the Masonic traditions that I find very interesting and that I'm very resonant with, and there's others that I'm not. Um, there is, they're not equal males and females in many different lodges. So,
Well, there again, you don't have that's, I believe that's a Western thing and a Near and a Far Eastern thing. We know among the Mongols and among the Asiatics, um, the Oriental or Asian peoples, the female took a lesser position. Not true in all of the cities in India. Sometimes there was a matrilineal. And of course, in Native American culture, for instance, Iroquois, which I grew up with, grandmother was the queen, was the ruler. There was a matrilineal society. We were forced as a child to read a book called The Tree and the Longhouse, which talked about the Algonquins and the Iroquois and the
mm,
Hurons and the Oneidas and Onondagas. I learned about all those tribes that peopled New York and parts of northern Canada, southern Canada, and as far as New Jersey.
one of the things I'm trying to build into the theosophical structure that I'm putting together is from the neo-theosophy, the latest version of theosophy. But it also matches a lot of um, traditions in Gnosticism with the aeons and the pleroma and things like that, and the monad or the atman or the one or the all. Um, and in the new theosophy, the avatars, the mythical gods, the saints, the angels, they're all working together to help humanity in its ascent. Humanity in its finding and recognizing its inner divinity and growing into its full potential as a divine being. So you have in their channelings and in their tales, you have like Jesus getting together with Kuan Yin and Apollo, to help people in Florida with some spiritual problems they're having, or to get them unstuck from some after death state that's unpleasant that they got stuck in. So it's very reactive to what's going on now rather than what happened in the past, in the mythic past or the historical past. And also, it has all these different religious figures working together in concert, and they get together not along ethnic lines, but along functional lines, and they've had different jobs. So Jesus, for instance, or Buddha, they were each a world teacher at some point, and then they got other jobs. So they're still like world teachers, but then they had other jobs. So they had like a portfolio or a resume.
Well,
And
that's very good.
yeah, so I'm not asking anybody to believe that that's literally true, but in terms of helping to structure what it is that we're doing, it's an excellent story that is exactly what I'm striving for and what I'm building. That Amun Ra remains Amun Ra, and even wears his Amun Ra guise when he's working with Kuan Yin and Moses. And each look like they're part of their own culture, not a new culture that's being created. So they are uniquely who they are, full in their manifestation of themselves, who they are, not who a culture would like them to be or how a culture translates them. But they find common ground with other pantheons, and then they work towards a specific end that helps humanity.
That's excellent.
So,
I've tried to bring things into my own temples in a
mm,
modern way. I know right now I don't look very modern, but I prefer. It took us 3 or 4 hours to get dressed half the time in the 1970s, and so putting on ritual garb, eyeliner is on straight, your crowns, jewelry, et cetera, robes. My mother always thought I was putting on the most wonderful costume parties. Everybody at every holiday we were all dressed in robes, and my father once said, Michael, you have too much eyeliner on. He said one was longer than the other, and I had to run and fix it. That was a pain in the neck. But we had all these things. For instance, Samhain, I had raked the leaves in my yard, and I brought them all downstairs and covered the entire basement with leaves. And my father said, just as long as you rake them up, it's all fine. And he said, but why do you guys have to burn so much incense? He said, what's going on down there? Are you guys smoking funny stuff? And he realized, no, we were just burning incense and candles. And the music was traditional Egyptian or Greek. There were orations. For me, Samhain was a celebration also for Hecate, and we had a huge, statue, a painting, a
mhm.
statue of Hecate. Forgive me, and it was we venerated the statue and dedicated it every year to her memory and her energy. So we tried to stop the costumes, the craziness, to wear mostly just either some of the jewelry and black, and so that's how I'm dressed as I am right now. I would be more like this if I was actually doing a real ritual.
Mhm.
No, no, this is a shawl that I'm wearing. I'm creating shawls for anyone who wants them that will have hieroglyphs on them, denoting their name on one side and their position on the other.
Oh, that is awesome, and it communicates what you wanted to communicate without taking 3 hours to put on. Or
Well, yes. I mean, I know that you used to walk around as Thor and in costume as Hercules also.
yeah, when I was 11, I started walking around New York in one of the Peplum Hercules guys is I had a bunch of different ones. The one that I liked was the maroon red one, the best. And I had a real sword and everything. And I was walking around New York as a kid. And then later on, when I was doing the Norse spirituality and I had the television show, that was more Viking or barbarian, my presentation. But yeah, it's always been a very important part of who I am. And so I just was being myself.
It's the same with me. My jewelry, except for the collar, I wear almost all of this every day.
Mhm.
It's just who I am. I don't do, as I mentioned to you, I don't have tattoos. So my tattoos are my jewelry. They represent that my journey, my Argos, my Odyssey. This is who I am. This is where I've been. My rings, my bracelets. These are Viking bracelets. I'm doing this to honor Thor and Odin because it's raining like crazy outside, and to me that honors Odin, and Thor with his thunder. So I'm honoring my Norse, and I have ancestors from York, so it's probable that I have some Viking blood in me anyway. So I do honor them. But what I was getting at is though, so we've minimalized things to more contemporary things. And also, I do a lot of rituals now. Rather than having a physical temple, I have a cyber temple. So I'm online like this on Zoom, or I am on, which will be my new channel, and we do rituals all over the world. And
That
I'm
is
sitting here in my bedroom, which looks like a temple at the moment, where we can do the whole ceremony and things. I have various other temples I can have as backdrops.
And that breaks down the barriers that we've erected, and it's become global, and people anywhere, regardless of their story, can be part of it if that's what they're called upon to do.
It started with my business, my phono wizard. Um, During COVID, I couldn't get to people because we were all, back hidden. We had to be put away, and I couldn't go to play. People were all what is the word I'm looking for? Um, Quarantined. That's the word. The fish oil was beginning to work. You see, so yeah, we were all quarantined. We couldn't get to each other. So I started doing my tarot readings and mediumship, et cetera, and prayers and spirituality and some of my spell work online and on the phone. And so, because it's electrical and we have all electrical energy in our own bodies, I learned that the phone was just as easy as being right in front of someone. We're communicating now. I'm on a phone.
Yeah,
We're on a streaming service called Zoom, and here we are.
and it's
So,
on YouTube where anybody can see it if they have a computer and access to YouTube.
so my tomb, my little temple behind me is a cyber temple. So anyone and everyone is invited to come to my temple. It's just turn on your phone, turn on YouTube, turn on your computer, and here we are. And you're at my temple. And I'm available to anyone all the time now this way. I find it amazing. You don't have to have a physical temple.
Yeah, it is amazing and it's effective. And
Thank you.
it's one of the things I appreciate about the modern times that we live in. There are many things I'm questioning, but this is not one of them. I believe that this is a boon to humanity.
People are complaining about AI. And if I have a problem in the morning, I'll say, "Hey Siri," and bingo, there he is. In my case, I've taken the female name out. I say, "Hey Siri, what time is it?" Or, "Hey Siri, what's the weather for today?" And it's part of my life. Or, "Hey Siri, who's this actor?" Or whatever. I have an encyclopedia in my telephone, and his name is Siri.
That is awesome.
Hmm. And I think that what we've got to take advantage of that. I even do. I have a grimoire, a book of shadows that will be available to people online, so that they'll be able to look up things based on a table of contents in my YouTube channel.
And you've also contributed to several anthologies that have been published.
Exactly. We know that I have two. I have one from Tim Shores that we've already had, which is the Strange Time, Weird Times.
Good
There's
time.
another coming out with ghosts, and
Yes,
of course, I am a monthly contributor to Today's Witch magazine. I have a beautiful ritual to Isis, which I sent you.
yes.
Um, which will be out in January. And also, there are questions. He has a little witch cat, which people will ask questions about how different things go on with different rituals. And it's called Ask Sebastian. And he's a little black cat with a witch hat on.
That is so cool.
Oh,
So you have grand plans also, which haven't come into effect yet. Are these grand plans still things you're contemplating doing, like having a physical temple?
I'm putting it out there, and thank you for saying that. We are looking for donations. We are looking for grants and such. I did have a GoFundMe for the temple to physically build a temple. I want a place where people can come as a sanctuary, and then both meanings, meaning the an inner temple, but also a place where people feel safe. That's what sanctuary means, and that they can do worship as they please. After all, wasn't that was how this country was established? We came in the English people that came here
To escape religious
for
pursuit.
religious freedom.
Yeah,
The other Europeans did not feel that way. If you did not worship as they pleased, you might have been barbecued, as it were. And I'm happy to say none of those people are part of my genetic makeup. Hmm. So, where do we go from here, my friend?
where do we go from here? We continue giving out information each in our own way and working together as much as possible. And we move forward to a more positive future. And we help bring that positive future into being. And we reinforce the things that we see as important in terms of people's values. And that's all we can do, the best that we can do, the highest that we can do, and just we continue doing it.
I've also wanted to say I have been working with all of the different Egyptian oriented traditions. I've created what I call the Khemetic Coalition, which is all people who are of the worship of ancient Egyptian deities and such. We are joining together to share rituals, ceremonies, prayers, information, the latest things that we learned archaeologically. So, anyone out there that is involved in anything with the ancient Egyptian traditions, please contact me and we'll find out how to do that in a few minutes. But so that you can then join our coalition.
Very good. I'm doing the same with the Greek, and this show we're doing today is actually part of that, the bridge building part of it. So that is good. That is a great thing.
I guess my part of the bridge has a pyramid under
There
it.
you go. Uh, so, what are the different ways that people can get involved with these things? Is there a group? Is there a
Yes.
me? Is there a
If you
individual?
go on to either Instagram or Facebook, you can go to the Pernateru Temple and you can find me. You can find me under Phone a Wizard, which is my services. So if you want to do something psychic or paranormal or metaphysical, I can help you that way. My classes are through Pernateru Temple. You can reach me through Michael K. Waterman, which is the other side of Setna Khamuast. You can call me, and that's anytime, 516-650-3691. And you can reach me by email if you're that person who's into emails, mkwaterman at icloud.com. Or you can reach me under this superstar hero friend of mine, Hercules. And I'm glad to be able to present this to all of you.
And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad our paths crossed. I'm glad we're friends, and I'm glad we're working together. I wish you the greatest success in all your endeavors, my friend, and I look forward to our next conversation, which should be within a few days. I think the cerulean uh, sphere is on Sunday, next Sunday.
Well, I'll
Not,
be there.
not
You
this coming
just,
Sunday, but the next Sunday. So I'm
as Michael Jackson said, I'll be there.
be well to you and be well to all those who listen here. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures and a happy holiday season, whatever holiday you happen to feel resonant with and wish.
And life, health, and prosperity to you all, and blessings. Good night, Hercules.
Thank you. Good night.